Well, as per usual, YouTube took this video down again as well. The timestamp that they gave me here was a photo of a fish with a cigarette in its mouth. So I've gone through and lobotomized this video as well, with this photo on the screen, to remove anything that could remotely be considered violent or harmful content, of which, believe it or not, there was none in the video. I don't know what to do anymore, but enjoy the video. Australia. What a great place to live. It's definitely in the top 200 countries of all time. I've spent years singing the praises of this place, but it's not all fun and games, is it? And one thing that I've noticed is that whenever I focus on the negatives, the videos perform a lot better than when I focus on the positives. So in this video, we'll be going through some of the things that I personally dislike about Australia, and some of the things that you guys probably dislike as well. Anyway, that's enough waffle, let's get into it. Starting off, of course, with one of my least favourite things in the entire world, the tax office. Now look, as much as we love to joke, and sometimes not joke, about how much we hate the tax office, you have to admit, without taxes, we'd be pretty fucked. However, that doesn't mean that the tax office doesn't constantly take the fucking piss. One of the stupidest taxes that I can think of is, of course, the luxury car tax. This tax was brought in on the 1st of July 2000, basically to protect our local car manufacturing industry, and of course line the government's pockets by picking on people who want to buy luxury or expensive cars. In 1999, you could get a Ford AU Falcon Fairmont for $50,000. That's over $100,000 in today's money back in 1999. And back then you could get a brand new BMW 318i E36 for very similar money. And since the government had seen a trend of people buying these imported luxury German engineered vehicles instead of the bodgy Fords made in Broadmeadows, they brought in the tax to incentivize people to buy our cars instead of the overseas imports. Which is fair enough, I guess. Now fast forward to October of 2017, when the last ever Holden Commodore rolled off the production line, and with it, the end of Australian-made cars. Guess what's still here to stick around? You guessed it, the luxury car tax. However, the tax has gone from 25% of every dollar over the threshold to 33%, and the threshold of $55,134 in 2000 is worth roughly $110,000 in today's money, whereas the luxury car tax today applies to every dollar a car costs over $80,567. So technically that means that the threshold's come down by $30,000, increased by 8%, and obviously, as you all know, cars are only getting more and more expensive. Cars like the 78 and 76 series Land Cruiser are being included with the luxury car tax, even though this is the interior. And obviously cars like dual cab utes and the 79 series Land Cruiser are all exempt from this because they're technically commercial vehicles, even though they seem to be pushing well over the luxury car tax threshold these days. If you buy a car for, let's say, $500,000, you're paying 33% tax on every dollar over that $80,000 mark, meaning that $500,000 car now costs you almost $100,000 just in luxury car tax. But that's just the left hook, because the right hook's still yet to come, since that price doesn't include stamp duty. So my message to the government is, if you're gonna f us like this, at least take us out to dinner first. So when people ask me, why do you drive an AU Falcon Forte instead of a Lamborghini Aventador SVJ, this is why. Another tax that I don't understand is, of course, the fuel excise. Now, as of recording this, they temporarily cut it from 52 cents per litre to 20 cents per litre, but I'm sure they won't waste time putting it back up when the time comes. But even then, we're paying 50 cents a litre in fuel excise just to pay another 10% GST when it comes time to check out. Now, I understand that without taxes this country would not be running as well as it does, but fuck me, one or the other. Another great one is, of course, the excise on cigarettes and alcohol. I can't really be bothered getting into the alcohol excise, but as you know, if you've been overseas, in Australia it's expensive, and the cigarette tax has gotten so high that the government themselves has created their own black market of illegal imports that's wreaking havoc all over the country. So it's safe to say that the tax system here is not very respected. Anyway, moving on. Quick side note that I gotta add on before we get into our next one is, of course, house prices. Now, I'm not an expert on this topic, so I don't have a reason, and I'm not a politician, so I don't have a solution. But as a YouTuber, I am qualified to complain about it. The median house price in Melbourne, where I live, is $1 million these days. And for $1 million, you pretty much get a shanty. But the worst offender, of course, has to be those inner city Sydney houses where it's like $10 million for an absolute rundown shoebox. But then you get those scumbag property investors who are all over social media and the news these days, flexing about how many houses they own, where their whole end goal is to just sit back and do nothing and get money. That's my job. But at least you guys get some entertainment out of what I do. Now, next up, of course, we're going to talk about how far away everything is from Australia and within Australia. Look how big Australia is compared to the USA. today. Very similar in size, except they have 50 states and we have 8 states and territories, which means you basically have 50 different cities to choose from to live in or near. Whereas in Australia, we've got 8 major cities, one of which is in Tasmania, so that's an instant write-off. And they're all so far away from each other that the capital city of New Zealand is closer to Canberra than Perth is. And the closest major capital cities are Canberra and Melbourne, and there's nothing to do in either of them. Then of course is the price of getting around thanks to Qantas and petrol prices. But I've already been through that in my airplanes video, so go watch that if you want the rundown. But basically for the same price and time, you can either fly from Melbourne to Brisbane, or if you live somewhere like Manchester, you can fly to Benidorm for like £100, do a madness, and then come back home. Whereas the closest thing Australia has to that is Bali, which even from the closest capital city, Darwin, is like $400 and 3 hours of flying. Now I know that's no one's fault, but that doesn't mean I can't still complain about it. And our New Zealand brothers across the ditch have the same problem. But fuck, imagine if Australia was just a little bit closer to everything, we'd save a whole lot of time and money. Bring back the Concorde, I reckon. But even this little dilemma won't stop you from running into Australians at every corner of the globe. I mean, just check out this Facebook page where people spot South Sydney Rabbitohs fans everywhere but South Sydney. But it gets worse. Australia's passport is the most expensive in the world, coming in at $422 fucking dollars. Why? And it gets even worse. I saw this the other day.
Going overseas is about to get more expensive. It's called the passenger movement charge and is essentially an exit fee to leave the country. $70 every time you buy a plane ticket or a cruise ticket. The government wants to raise it from $70 to $80, so only an extra $10, but really it adds up.
The government's added $10 onto the passenger movement charge, which I didn't even know was a thing until now, and is basically a fee every time you leave the country, as if it wasn't already fucking expensive enough. But who am I to judge? The politicians are going to pay for all their alcohol somehow, which they're only making more and more expensive every 6 months. Anyway, that's enough political shit, let's move on. You know who else I hate? Those who put ads all over Facebook targeting tradies saying, hey, do you want to escape the 9 till 5? Buy my course and I'll tell you how as well. And they're like 19 and never worked a day in their life, claiming that the methods that they used helped them escape the 9 till 5, even though most tradesmen work from 7 till 3, which they would have known if they weren't lying about the fact that they used to work in the trades before they escaped using their methods. It's almost as if they specifically target tradesmen because they think they're dumb, even though they're the ones that fell for the pyramid scheme that they're promoting, and the tradies are earning more than them while actually contributing something to society. Those idiots just need to shut up. Now another thing that really cheeses me off about Australia is that they only produced the AU Falcon for 4 years, while the first generation Volkswagen Beetle was produced for 65 years, and that was designed by... So obviously controversy doesn't play a factor into how long a vehicle's produced for, but I'm pretty sure the reason that they shut up shop on the AU Falcon so early is because Wakanda ran out of vibranium, which of course is used to build the engine internals on the AU Falcon, and after they'd sold 10 million of them, they thought, fuck, we don't need to produce any more, these things will last forever, and that was history. But I wish I could walk into a Ford dealership today and buy a brand spanker, but as I mentioned earlier, we don't build cars anymore. Now as you may or may not have noticed, I'm slightly running out of dot points here because I believe Australia is the greatest country in the world, and there's not too many things I hate about it, but this next one I do, and that of course is speed limits. 1902. I remember it like it was yesterday, but in 1903 Australia implemented its first speed limits. But even then apparently you could just speed anyway as long as you did so safely. It's not like they had highway patrol with radar guns to measure your speed, but as a wise man once said,
speed has never killed anyone. Suddenly becoming stationary, that's what gets you.
And one thing that's been around since the 1900s, of course, is shit drivers. Now, obviously, the road toll keeps rising in Australia, but so does the population, so it kind of makes sense. However, back in the 1970s or 80s, we didn't have smartphones, traction control, lane keep assist, automatic braking, radar-guided cruise control, you name it. You actually had to be good at driving to be able to drive. Now, any idiot can just go into a car dealership, get a brand new BYD Rock Spider 15, bang it down the freeway with all the assists, and not actually have to learn how to drive properly. Now, the amount of times I've been in like an Uber or a taxi and the driver's got his phone on the dashboard watching movies, or I'm driving down the freeway, I look to the left and someone's doing the exact same thing. I think Australia has a bad driving problem. I mean, when you look at similar sized countries like the USA, Canada, Russia, and China, our speed limits seem to be a lot lower, which isn't exactly helpful when everything's so far away as I mentioned before. But in inner city towns, they seem to keep lowering speed limits non-stop. Roads going from 80 to 60 for no reason, 60 to 50 for no reason, and in super built built-up areas 40 to 30. At this point, I'm just going to park up the car and start walking quicker. Now, they say it's for safety and everything, but even the 60k/h zones in Melbourne, you're going like 20 most of the time because of all the traffic. And whenever they drop these limits, it seems to be a spawn point for these mobile speed cameras. But I reckon that's a can of worms that will open another time. But the worst affected road, of course, has to be the Stuart Highway in the middle of Bumf. Certain sections of this highway that connect Port Augusta to Darwin used to have no speed limit because there was literally nothing to hit and it's in the middle of nowhere. And in 1994 they had a cannonball event where they raced from the bottom to the top of the Stuart Highway in open traffic conditions, which of course 75% of the route had absolutely no speed limit. And obviously it was not safe, and unfortunately 4 people died when a Ferrari F40 crashed, killing both occupants of the vehicle and 2 race officials, but it was legal. And in 2014 the Wheels magazine took the final Australian built Ford Falcon GT in an attempt to hit 300 k's an hour, similar to what they did in 1971 with the XY GT on the Hume Highway. Imagine doing that now. But they fell a little bit short, only hitting 297 k's an hour, almost as quick as the AU Falcon. And then in 2016, they finally limited the speed limit on the Stuart Highway to a measly 130 kilometers an hour. Anyway, moving on to our final thing, gambling ads. Now, gambling ads on social media is a big can of worms that I'm not going to get into. These companies pay a lot of money, and for most people, making YouTube videos is very expensive, so that money does go a long way. But no Instagram reel is being improved with a Rainbet integration. But the worst offender, of course, has to be the sports betting ads.
Sportsbet, proud supporters of having a crack.
Imagine what you can be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call them.
Whenever there's footy on, or any major sporting event, you just get absolutely bombarded with them. Now, 2 of my least favourites are of course the Sportsbet proud supporters of having a crack, but by far the worst one is this Ladbrokes one, where they couldn't even be bothered using their massive profits to employ real actors, a real production team, instead just AI generating it all. Like, how scummy can you be? Especially when these platforms just ban anyone who wins too much. At least the government's been cracking down recently. Anyway, I think we'll leave it there. If you enjoyed this video, you'll probably enjoy one of these too. Like, subscribe, comment and share, and I'll see all of you guys in the next one.